What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the first episode of this new series we're going to be doing here on the channel. And the name of the series is going to be the KT series. And essentially the whole purpose of the KT series is for me to give you a little bit of a knowledge transfer for different kinds of techniques and lures and things like that, and in hopes to give you guys a little bit more understanding and ultimately more success on the water as you guys are fishing these techniques. Now, all of these videos are going to be in partnership with barbcatchfishing.com. If you guys don't know, barbcatchfishing.com is an online resource where you can look up different kinds of articles and videos over certain techniques, gear, baits, and things of that nature. So if you guys are ready to level up your fishing game, go ahead and check out barbcatchfishing.com. Follow them on their socials and learn a thing or two. So all right, guys, so in this first episode of the KT series, we're going to be talking about one of the most popular techniques in the fishing community, and that is the drop shot. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to learning. All right, guys, so basically what is the drop shot? So the drop shot is a very, very simple rig that consists of essentially 4 different kinds of components. The first one being the weight, which is going to be at the end of your line. You have your leader. You have your hook. And then you have, obviously, your bait. So that's essentially what the drop shot is. And the beauty behind a drop shot is the fact that this is a bottom contact presentation, but it also gives you a suspending presentation as well. So very, very few, if not any other bottom contact techniques gives you that kind of presentation where you have a bottom contact weight and then you have a suspended bait that's on top of these fish. Now, if you guys didn't know, bass don't like things being above them. So they would much rather eat something that's above them than below them. And basically the drop shot gives them exactly that. Now, why does this work? Again, because this is a suspending bottom contact bait, it's a little bit of a different profile where you could actually fish this in and around any kind of cover and in multiple kinds of depths depending on the length of your leader. So when do you throw this? Essentially, you could throw this anytime. You could throw this anytime, you could throw this anywhere. And depending on how you rig it up is going to be dependent on what exactly you're fishing and where you're fishing this. For an example, we could talk about my most recent trip out to Lake Havasu, where I was fishing the ABA Tournament of Champions tournament, and I was throwing out a drop shot, and I had a drop shot leader for maybe about 2 feet, I would say, so basically about the same length as this, and I was not getting bit on it. And the reason why is because the actual bait in itself was getting in the grass. It was getting hung up in grass. So I made a minor adjustment, but this minor adjustment helped me get a little bit more bites. And basically what that adjustment was that I took this leader and I extended it. So instead of having a 2-foot leader, I had like a 4-foot leader. And basically what that did was that it allowed this bait to suspend on top of that grass. So although the weight was on the bottom, I had a 4-foot suspended worm on top of that grass, and that's essentially what allowed me to get a lot of my drop shot bites in that tournament. So again, very, very versatile bait. You could throw this anywhere, to include rock structures, to include laydowns, grass lines. You could actually flip this. It's a very, very versatile bait because you can kind of change really anything. You could change the leader length, you could change the weight of the actual weight itself, you could change the presentation of how you want to present this bait, whether that be weedless or open, which again, we're gonna kind of go into that later on in this video, but very, very versatile bait that really doesn't have any kind of restrictions on when or where you could throw it. So when it comes to retrievals, there's two different kind of retrievals that I like to do. One of them being a dead stick, and the other one being the actual like twitching method and just bringing it back how you guys would normally see me do in my videos. So basically, how you're gonna fish this, you're gonna throw this out as far as you can, or throw it out to wherever you think that the fish may be. You're gonna let it sink all the way down to the bottom. And one of the good indications that the bait has fully sunk into the bottom is when your line kind of bows over. So obviously you're gonna throw it out, leave the bail open, or leave your reel out so that it can continue to feed out line. And once the bait hits bottom, you will know, because one, your line is no longer gonna be spooling out, and then two, you'll visually see that your line is bowed over. So going back over to it, you're gonna go ahead and throw it out, wait until it hits bottom. And when it comes to the dead sticking method, essentially what you're gonna do is once you throw it out, you're gonna reel up your slack, and once you catch up to that bait, you're just gonna go ahead and from your rod, with the tip of your rod, you're just gonna go ahead and slowly drag it up. Slowly drag it up until you're at about like from the 9 o'clock position to the 12 o'clock position. Once you get to the 12 o'clock position, you're gonna reel up, you're gonna drop it back down, reel up your slack, and slowly bring it back. Basically, you're dragging this bait across the bottom of the lake, and you're not really imparting any kind of action into it. So that's what a dead stick is called. Usually you would want to do a dead stick method when you are in highly pressured waters, or if the water temperatures are leaning more towards that cooler side and is really cold. So keep in mind that the dead stick method is very, very subtle. You're not imparting any kind of action in it. So it is very, very natural, very, very subtle. And when the water temps are cold, there's not a lot of things in the water that's moving around and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So you are presenting this bait in the most natural way as possible with the dead stick. Now, when it comes to the other method, which is the method that I generally like to throw out majority of the time, is I'm actually just gonna throw it out. Once it hits bottom, I'm just gonna go ahead and take that rod tip and I'm just gonna twitch it all the way up. So from 9 o'clock position, twitch, 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 twitch. And as I'm doing that, I'm kind of reeling in my slack at the same time. Once I hit the 12 o'clock position, drop my rod tip back down, reel up the slack, and basically just twitch it on the way up. And essentially what that does is that it allows you to impart action into the bait itself. And generally you'd want to do that when the water temps are on the warmer side, because the warmer the water temps, the more life that there is inside the water. And again, you are trying to present this in the most natural way possible. So that is a good way to go out and mimic that kind of forage that's a little bit more lively by doing so. So those are the two ways that you would fish this, either dead stick or just impart action on it. Now, when it comes to the gear, we're gonna go ahead and talk about the rod and reel first. So the rod, I have this on a Megabass Levante Enforcer. This is a 7-foot 4-inch rod, medium action, fast tip, medium power, fast action. And essentially, the key in a rod is gonna be the actual length itself. So the longer the rod, the more casting distance that you have, and the more leverage you have when you are trying to set the hook on a bait that's very, very far from you. Because again, this is a bottom contact bait, so you could be fishing this in any kind of depth that's gonna be like in inches of water up to maybe even 60 feet of water if the fish are there. And you're also gonna be bombing this. So you want to take that into consideration as well, where you're gonna be utilizing this technique over a very, very long distance. So rod length is very, very important. And then the reel itself, you could use really any kind of spinning reel. You could also use this on a bait caster, but when it comes to the spinning reel, I have this on a 2500 series Shimano Sahara. And I like to stick with the 2500 series because it's small enough so that it doesn't fatigue me when I'm throwing this out all day, but also big enough to give me that kind of line capacity where if I need 150 yards of line, I have it, even though realistically I'm probably not going to be fishing that. If I needed it, I have it. So going over to the line, I throw this on 15-pound braid to a 8 to 10 copolymer leader. Now, again, since this is a finesse kind of technique, the most important thing that you want to do with this is you want to use the lightest tackle as you could possibly get away with. Now, what I mean by light is you want to use the lightest kind of line. So if you could get away with using 8-pound braid in your body of water, use 8-pound braid. If you could get away with 4-pound leader, use that leader, because the lighter you go, the more finesse and the more natural you are presenting that bait to that fish. Now, obviously, situation is going to dictate where if you're fishing in and around cover, you obviously would want to upsize your gear. And if you're using open water and these fish are very, very line shy, you want to go with a smaller diameter line. Going over to the actual weights, hooks, and bait. When it comes to the weight, there are two different kinds of style weights that I generally use. Now, majority of the time you guys are going to see me use this cylinder style weight. Reason being is because it gets in and out of cover very, very easily. It doesn't get hung up as much, but the downside of it is fishing it around rocks. Now, when it comes to rocks, this weight tends to kind of get in between the rocks and kind of like get hung up, and you'll get stuck and you'll most likely have to break off that weight every time you get hung up. So to mitigate that, when I am fishing in and around rock structures, I stick to a teardrop style weight. Now, by design, the teardrop is actually better for rock because it has a bigger bottom. It doesn't get inside those crevices as easily. So obviously there's a time and a place for everything, but when it comes to rocky bottom, I go with the teardrop, and any other time I'm going with the cylinder style. Now, going up to the hook, as you guys can see here, I have a owner cover shot hook, and I generally like to stick with this hook because I like the weedless properties of this hook in itself. When I am fishing the drop shot, majority of the times I'm going to be fishing it around cover. So I like to have a weedless presentation where I could get this presentation in and out of as much trouble as I possibly can without actually getting hung up. So majority of the times I'm going to be using a owner cover shot hook just because of those weedless properties. And the hookup ratio on this is actually very, very good as well. So weedless, good hookup ratio, can't go wrong with the owner cover shot. The other style hook is going to be a open hook, as you guys can see there. And with the open hook, obviously you're gonna have a much higher hookup ratio because there's really nothing covering it. But when I use this hook, I generally like to take my bait here. This is a Stealth Finesse minnow. I like to go in and actually nose hook my baits. And by doing so, you have, again, a open hook. So it gives you a higher hookup ratio, but also, as you guys can kind of see there, it gives you a lot more natural movement there. So when I'm throwing an open style hook, I'm throwing this out in open water where I have confidence that I won't get hung up and I won't get snagged. Obviously, I want to give myself the best opportunity as possible to hook up on a fish and land them without getting snagged up or without having to break off the whole entire leader because I got snagged. We're gonna go ahead and go on to the on the water portion of this video where you're gonna see firsthand how I work this presentation and how the fish bites it and things like that. So we're gonna head on to the water. I'll see you guys here in a few. Okay, let's see what we got here. So we got a drop shot hook here. Okay. And let's go ahead and just throw out something more natural. So I'll go ahead and throw out a morning dawn. We'll see if we can get bit off of that guy. Morning dawn hot shot. We'll see if we can get bit off of this guy here. Basically, this is going to be our drop shot here. We have our drop shot hook, and I'd say about a 1.5 foot leader going over to a 1/4 ounce tungsten weight. Just gonna go ahead and nose hook this guy. Give us the best kind of hookup ratio we can get. Let's see if that is the juice. Basically what I'm doing is I'm just going to go ahead and just continue to work this guy. Now this one is a smaller presentation, so I'm going to set the hook, but I'm not as hard as I normally would, just because I know that this is a more finessey kind of type presentation. Right now I'm throwing 15-pound braid to an 8-pound copolymer leader, so can't necessarily jack these fish as much as I normally would, because there will be a time when I set the hook too hard and it's going to break my leader. So really with these ones, because the gauge of the hook is so thin, you can realistically just kind of lean in and reel into these fish and they'll hook themselves when they try to run. So go ahead and throw that out. Wait until it hits bottom, and from here just kind of slowly work it back towards you. On this presentation, majority of the times, usually something you'd want to do when you're kind of stuck. Drop shot is definitely one of the techniques that if you're struggling, you could throw out a drop shot and it'll get you bit. Just gonna go ahead and kind of slowly work this guy back over to us here. I'm gonna try to get a little bit closer to that shoreline structure. See if that'll help at all. Alright, so you guys see that rod tip, how it's loading up? That's how you know that's a fish. So we're just gonna set the hook, lean into them, and that's how you know you have a fish right there. You'll feel that fish kind of load up. You feel that twitch, but you'll feel them load up as well. So got ourselves a fish off the drop shot. Didn't feel like a big one, but it's a nice fish. Ooh, he's digging. Now that I'm at my leader, I could see where this guy's at. Here we go. Drop that fish. Okay, so hopefully you guys were able to see the rod twitches, but as you can see here, choked it. No, you can see there, I barely have his gullet hooked right there, but if I would have had a stiffer rod, that would have ripped out really fast. So luckily, I had more of a parabolic rod, more forgiving rod, and we could get this hook out of this guy. So a drop shot fish. Like I said, guys, you guys are struggling to get bit, throw out a drop shot. All right, so hopefully you guys were able to see how the behavior of the rod tip is whenever you get bit. Now, again, you'll know when you get bit. When you feel a little bit of tension or anything like that, just kind of reel up your slack, get to the bait, and then see if that fish kind of pulls back on you, and if he does, that's when you want to go ahead and set the hook. But you don't want to set the hook on every single little bit of resistance that you feel, because this is a bottom contact presentation, so you're going to feel a lot of that bottom structure, whatever that may be. And if you're fishing on rocks and things like that, then you're gonna set the hook on a lot of things just because you think that they're bites. So it's best to just go ahead and reel up your slack, kind of catch up to that fish, and once you feel that fish pull back on you, that's when you want to set the hook. So basically, guys, that's gonna be the rundown of the drop shot. Again, this is one of the most prolific techniques in the bass fishing community. When I first started off bass fishing, I only threw out the drop shot, and that was really where I gained a lot of my confidence. And another story that I could tell with how successful this technique is I went over to a local pond. It was just me and another gentleman, and if he's watching this, he's gonna know who he is. But this gentleman was out fishing. That was his first time. Never bass fished, didn't really know how to bass fish, and we kind of chopped it up, and I was like, all right, man, look, I'm gonna put you on some fish, because I know of a technique that's gonna be able to get you some fish. So I showed him how to do a braid to leader. I showed him how to rig up the drop shot, and basically gave him some baits so that he can get bit. And as he was fishing that, I actually went around the lake, and I would say maybe like an hour and a half later, I was maybe about half of a mile away from this guy. But we're fishing the same lake, so obviously he was on one side, I was on the other side, but the distance to get there was about half a mile. But anyway, I was fishing in my spot, and he walked over to me just to show me some of the fish that he caught off of the drop shot. So again, brand new fisherman, never bass fished in his life. Showed him how to rig up a drop shot, showed him how to work it, and he was able to get bit. And he was super excited, super grateful that I showed him that, and he's absolutely loving bass fishing now. So if you guys are new to bass fishing, or if you guys want to get bit, if you guys want to introduce bass fishing to new anglers, a drop shot is a very good way to get bit and get those anglers interested. All right, guys, so that is basically gonna be the whole entire video. If you guys like this kind of content, go ahead and like and comment below on what exactly you guys want me to talk about. If you guys wanted me to talk about different kinds of techniques or gear, go ahead and comment on the video below, and I'll go ahead and see if I can make a video on that based off of my own experiences or even off of some of the stuff that I learned online. But all of this stuff, all of the gear and everything is gonna be linked into the description below as well, so that if you guys wanted to kind of replicate my my setup and things like that, you guys won't have to remember it. It'll be inside the description of this video. Again, guys, this is in partnership with barbcatchfishing.com. All of the KT series videos are gonna be on that website, and if you wanted to check out the website for specific articles on techniques, videos on how-tos and things like that, go ahead and check out barbcatchfishing.com. But okay, that's gonna be it for this episode of the KT series. As always, thank you guys for liking, subscribing, joining me for my adventures on the water, and I'll see you guys in the next one.